Alright, I like your description better, but the beach thing doesn't work. Who in here is using social media or content marketing currently?
Personal or business?
Excuse me? Business, I'm sorry, business. To meet, prospect, etc. Okay, so 1 or 2. So the rest of you, I assume, are at the classic. I think I might want to do this, but I really don't know where to go or if I should go. Yeah? Okay, well, good then. We're all on the right one. I'm actually going to, I always have to practice what I preach. So some of the things that I'm going to talk to you about at the end of the presentation under how to actually create lots of content without losing your mind in the process of doing it, I'm going to actually be doing today. So those of you may have noticed as Fred was talking, instead of preparing to record, I am recording the entire presentation, and it will be made available post-PIAA for you. So don't feel like you have to take copious notes. The audio and the slides will be together in a little movie file, so you'll be able to go right back and relive this if you so desire, or just scratch it, one of the two. So, but you'll have that, so don't feel like you have to take copious notes. So we'll talk about social media a little bit today, though I will say in your space, I think it's less about social media in the traditional sense of social, like Facebook, Twitter, engagement, transparency, authenticity, all the stuff you read about, hear about all the time. It's much more about content. Your game is much more about content marketing. It's much more about search engine optimization, buyer education, lead generation, etc. So I would tell you that the first thing is if you're thinking about getting into this space, you really have two kind of questions you have to ask. First is, what are my goals? The first, this is probably, I think, the 3 goals that are most appropriate in your industry. And the first is search engine optimization. Like it or not, Google is where everyone goes. You don't know the answer to a question, you Google it. There's a reason Encyclopedia Britannica ceased to print encyclopedias starting this year. They printed their last one. You'll never find that guy coming door to door again. Because nobody's reading that. Everybody just goes to Google or Wikipedia, and it's not just college kids and high school kids writing term papers, it's B2B buyers, it's adults. It's just the fault. And I'll show you some statistics here in a minute that kind of reinforce this. Relationship enhancement. Obviously, I mean, you're in the insurance business. Renewals are your friend. It's infinitely cheaper to retain or renew an existing customer than it is to go out and get a new customer to come in. That's not just your business, it's every business. Content marketing and social media are outstanding relationship building tools. They're a great low-cost way to have a digital conversation with a client or an insuree versus what you used to have to do before really internet and social, which was a lot of direct mail. Every time you wanted to talk to them, you had to incur a cost. It was a linear one-to-one relationship. You don't have that in social. It's one of the great things. It scales without cost. It's one of the first, really it is the first advertising medium that scales without a linear cost. It's more of a stair-step cost. And then lastly, lead generation. Most research in the B2B space will tell you that, depending on whose research it is, buyers today arrive at your door anywhere from 50 to 70% already pre-educated. They're using the internet to self-educate themselves. That used to be the role of salespeople, because that's what you would have to do if you wanted to learn more about a company's products and offerings. You would have to call them, order some information, let a salesperson give you a sales visit, whatever. Nowadays, you can turn to the internet. So content marketing is especially good for lead generation because they're going to self-educate. So by putting your content in the space, they can self-educate on you, and they will, and that's going to also shorten your sales cycle. The other significant question that will be asked of you, or that you shall ask, and usually you will ask people like me that are consultants, or maybe you have an ad agency partner that helps you with this type of stuff, you're going to ask them, should I be in social media? And there's one of 2 answers you will get. One is very self-serving, one is very honest. The self-serving one will be, absolutely. You should be in social. Everybody should be in social media. Anybody talks about your product, you should be in social media. It's a very self-serving answer because what does it do? It generates billings. The honest answer, the one you seldom will get, is I don't really know. Okay? Social isn't for everyone. It is for companies whose customer and prospect base are actively using social media, and more importantly, are actively using social and digital channels to acquire information to make the purchasing decision. You heard Fred say a moment ago that we're actually working together on a project. The project we're working on, is Lamico asked that question, and I said, I don't know. I can help you figure it out. We can do research, but I can't stand here and in all honesty tell you yes or no. Thankfully, while they aren't going to let me release all the data to you, they're not that generous. Fred and his team was kind enough to unembargo a few of the key statistics that I'm going to show you today. So this is fresh, real research of doctors in Louisiana. So your results might differ, because you can't say that doctors in Louisiana are a representative sample of the entire United States. However, it does show you this is how you can go about starting to understand what is the answer to that question. So the first thing you obviously want to know is, are physicians online? The answer is yes, they are. It was almost universal in the study. Almost 100% of the physicians said, I actively use the internet. Where are they going when they're on the internet? Well, like I said, everybody's searching. 82% of the folks are using search engines to get information. Interestingly, though, 57% of them are getting their news online, which is not unusual. You're seeing that. But here's where the fun stuff comes in. Over half are going to medical information websites. So they absolutely are going online to find medical information. 30% of them use social networks, and I will tell you, there's more data behind that number as you start to pull it apart. It's really quite interesting. Doctors like Facebook, that's all I'll tell you. They're in video sites. Who doesn't like to watch a funny cat on YouTube? Sports, which doesn't surprise me. That always tends to do well. But then if you look down here, 13% are going to medical information-oriented blogs, which is pretty solid penetration. Medical forums, 13% of them. So you've got a nice little chunk there that are going into very niche marketing. And these would be medical information-oriented blogs. That would include things like an insurance company's blog. Okay. So this shows us that there is really pretty good penetration, at least in Louisiana. And certainly you can make the case that some sort of content or social media program is worthy of a blow. Other very interesting thing you have to keep in mind is the mobilization of America. We love our little smartphones. Do you access internet from your smartphone? 97% of them, yes, I do. Okay? And what's interesting is they're not just checking the scores and weather. Though searching, looking up driving and weather are clearly the top three things. Look up here, medical information websites. 53% of them are going to medical information websites from their mobile phone, from their smartphone. 36% of them are reading medical news online, and 11% are participating in medical forums from their phone. These are solid numbers. So not only is this doctor population online in a desktop frame of mind, but also in a smartphone frame of mind. And the thing is that the reason that's important to you is if your data would kind of follow this pattern, the way you do mobile content isn't just make it smaller to fit the screen. You have to fundamentally alter your strategy of delivering content in a mobile environment because it's a completely different contextual mindset. It's almost a parallel program. Somebody have a hand up? Yes.
Did you have any age demographics on that? Younger doctors, more, or across the board?
We do have the breakdown, and I will tell you that this is across the entire board. There are not, the younger people are slightly more mobile, but it was not this is all under 25 kind of thing. This is the total demographic, and it was a nice age split across the entire demographic of the sample size. Yes. The other thing you have to think about is one of the oldest forms of content marketing, and one that you probably are, or at least should be considering because it's very powerful, is email. But you have to understand that 90% of your audience, if you're Louisiana doctors, is reading that email on a smartphone. And I would venture to say that if you fielded similar research in your region, in your market area, you would find this to be very similar. If they have a smartphone, there's a reason they have a smartphone. They're reading their email on their smartphone. Over 57% of them said I read more than half of my email on my phone. Again, marketing, email messages on a mobile phone have to be fundamentally different than in a traditional. You really have to think about if you have a high penetration of mobile utilization of email because you have to really change how you build your message. Now again, this may or may not play out in your region, but I would encourage you to go find out before you embark on anything I'm about to talk about. Okay? It's sort of like buying insurance. You can spend $10,000 today to save $100,000 tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. Or you can just jump right into the $100,000 program and create that forever. I think the preliminary stuff makes more sense. Now, the $64,000 question we asked was, would you actually follow an insurance company log for relevant information about running a better practice, risk management, stuff like this? And folks, it's a toss-up. It is almost exactly 50-50. It's a flip of a coin. Anybody have to venture a guess on what the piece that causes them to tip either yes or no is?
If it's
Yeah,
their insurance
discount.
company.
Yeah.
Quality of the content. Quality of the content. If the insurance company was providing high quality content, not just sales messages, repackages, but real good high quality content that's going to benefit me, the answer was yes. If you weren't, the answer was no. Very simple. So it's a flip of the coin, but it's a flip of the coin that you can control the outcome statistically of if you'll, again, have a strategy and embrace the sort of the ethos of content marketing, which is you have to give to get. But if you simply go into this space and you're doing promotional messaging, chances are you're not going to be successful. So just know that. All right, so the name of the game is it comes down to content. Everything comes down to content, even social. Because if you think about social media as conversations, it's usually conversations about content. Even when you think about, the viral video that everybody forwards and everybody talks about, around the water cooler, they're talking about what? Content, right? So it's all about content. Now, I'm going to talk very briefly a little bit about social media, but I really want to spend most of today on content because honestly, I believe that's where you're going to get more value. But if you have questions on social stuff, we can sure jump into that as well. First off, whether it's social or content, you have to alter the way you approach it. I grew up in the advertising business, 20 years in the ad agency business. And in the ad agency business, as in most traditional marketing, we're talking, basically each ad, each radio spot, each TV, direct mail, yada, 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 had to close the deal, right? Everything, every ad, every impression was about trying to move from awareness to sale as fast as possible. Mainly because consumers were really good at ignoring advertising, so you never know if you're really going to get a bite of the apple. Social is fundamentally different. Everything you do in social is really breadcrumbs. You never expect that any one thing you're going to do is going to actually convert anyone. Instead, what you're trying to do is drop little breadcrumbs. Somewhat because you've got short attention spans on the web, some sort of social networks like Twitter and Facebook, well, Facebook not anymore than they used to, but Twitter limits you to 140 characters. Facebook used to be like 300. LinkedIn limits how many characters you can put in an update. You don't have a lot of space, so you're not really going to get the whole thing done. But secondly, is what you're doing is you're dropping little breadcrumbs, because what you're trying to do is get the person to invite you and your company into their world. When I subscribe to your website, when I subscribe to your blog or your news, I'm inviting you into my world. I'm giving you permission to access me in a very low-cost way on a repeated basis, right? So in order to not overwhelm me, you have to leave little bits of information. I'll put them together. The idea is that you drop the breadcrumbs because you want to bring them right down this little trail right here, and at the end of the trail is you, doing business with you. So you're never, ever trying to completely close the deal or open the deal. What you're trying to do is say, let me give you a little bite here. Here's another little bite. Here's another little bite. Well, what happens is they're like little Hansel and Gretel. Eventually, they find their way back to the house. The birds don't eat the breadcrumbs first. I'm going to show you an example of that and take you through literally how you might go about putting that together. But that's the thing. Most of the clients that we work with in any industry, the biggest mistake they make is they want to jump right into this traditional advertising mindset. They want to sell, sell, sell. They want to talk about their product. They want to close the deal. And it's like, whoa, time out. You have to slow down. This is a slower build process than it is advertising. All right, so on the social side, everybody probably recognizes this. LinkedIn, you've got Google+, which is the newest kid to the block. You've got Facebook and Twitter. Does everybody use these? Who uses Twitter, by the way? I always want to know that. Yeah, that's always the small one. Anybody on Google+? Google+ is pretty cool. And I'll say the coolest feature about it is it's called Hangouts. Basically, it allows you to do a video conference for free with up to 10 people. And it's relatively high quality. I'll tell you what it's really good for. It's really good for doing either quick little informal focus group type research with agents or customers or prospects. It's great for doing little virtual summits. I'm actually doing one in a couple of weeks in the pharmaceutical realm. We're getting a bunch of diabetic bloggers, and we're going to do a virtual summit on diabetic peripheral neuropathy. And we're just going to bring them all into this little Google Hangout. It's not costing my client any money other than our time, right? And we're going to sit face to face, and it's really the quality is excellent. Who's ever talking, their head goes up to the top, everybody else stays down at the bottom. It's really the next best thing to be in there. Most powerful and best use of Google. So if you're not in Google Plus, everybody can sign up. Give it a look and take a chance with it, because I think you'll find it can do little guerrilla insight type work through there. And it's anybody who's not on it, you want to put them in, you can just sign up. Facebook and Twitter, we all know, as I said, the research did show that docs like Facebook, Twitter is still that really niche micro little network. But what's interesting about the folks on Twitter is they tend to be more brand loyal about the brands that they talk about. When they get excited about a brand and they talk about it on Twitter, they tend to have a more solid relationship. Now, in your world, though, it goes beyond that. Is anybody familiar with any of these four? Doctor's Lounge, Up to Date, Sermo, or WebMD? You probably know WebMD. How about the other three? Up to Date is actually an app that you can put on your phone. I will tell you again, I can't give you all the data, but if you're not familiar, write them all down, get familiar with them. Target-rich environment. Lots of things you can do there as a company. But the thing is that while in social, your clients, your docs, they may not be having very intimate conversations here, because it's that's where their friends are, but they are having very intimate conversations over here. Very serious conversations, high amount of repetition, et cetera, et cetera. And if they're going to put that app on their phone, then that's usually a pretty good indication of desire to participate. So look at those, even if all you can do is just get your message in front of them, look at that as a channel that you can do that. But like I said, what I really want to spend most of the day talking about is content. Because in your world, it's not going to be about having a good Facebook strategy or a Twitter strategy or even a sermon strategy. It's going to be about having a good content strategy. Because the thing you're most looking for is relationship and lead building. And lead building is going to come from SEO. Google loves blogs. The reason Google loves blogs is Google favors sites that update often and are full of content, keyword-rich content, and sites that are linked back to by other sites. Okay? We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Google likes to see lots of other links coming into your content because that tells Google that somebody found it important enough or worthy enough to link to, so they take that as a sign of good quality. Now, the thing about content is there's a billion people a day writing blogs, putting content up on websites. And that grows by leaps and bounds each and every day. The problem is most of it really, really stinks. It's very bland, it's very Me Too, it's very reused, it's just not all that great. Does anybody here, everybody here knows Lady Gaga? Yes? Anybody here a fan of Lady Gaga? It's okay. Yeah. Okay, I got one brave soul in the back. Said, yeah, what are you up to? Maybe
my daughter loves her.
She's the modern, she's the 2012 version of Madonna. I mean, my God, I'm looking around, most of us probably know Madonna. That's probably more of our cultural type point, but the only thing she hasn't done is a book of her naked. And she's following all of Madonna's little tricks. It's ridiculous. But the thing about Gaga is even though you're not a fan, how many of you would say she's really good at getting herself noticed? Right? Her content gets noticed. Gaga is fabulous in the content marketing world. She's also very good at social media as well. But I use her as an example of, you may not like her music, you may not be a fan, you may feel like she's not for me because she's pretty out there on the envelope, but you know who she is, you're aware of her. I didn't need to remind you, I didn't tell anybody here she was a singer. She is a fabulous content marketer. Why? Because she stands out. She doesn't do Me Too music, which if you look at the music world today, the entertainment world in general, it is a Me Too entertainment world, right? Somebody comes up with like American Idol, then you got The Voice, and you got the country American Idol, and you got, entertainment is all about Me Too. And yet here's a young lady who succeeded in completely and totally standing out strictly by what she does. That's what you need. You need Gaga content. Because you're dealing with people who are incredibly busy, are consuming information sometimes on cell phones, which is really, really small, fast, in and out. Okay? And when you look at internet usage of people who have smartphones, it goes from being, if you don't have a smartphone, your internet usage looks like this. There's kind of a big block in the morning, afternoon, early afternoon, late evening, and then late evening, like hour and a half, 2 hour type blocks. When you give somebody a smartphone, what happens is a couple of those blocks disappear, but then you see all these little thin, little 15-minute blocks, very staccato. Boom, 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 boom. Over 50% of America will not go more than 45 minutes without checking their cell phone. Kid you not, research just came out this week. Over 50%, every 45 minutes, they have to look at their phone to see if they've got new updates or texts or whatever. 100% of Americans are okay getting a text message to interrupt them. You know, whenever. We are tethered to these things. But what happens is the usage pattern is in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. We're becoming an ADD society. So your content has to rock and roll because you don't have a lot of time. I saw some research recently that if you do a video, you have 9 seconds. If you don't grab me in the opening 9 seconds of your video, chances are it will bounce out and go back to someplace else. 9 seconds. That was 9 seconds. Boom, I'm out, I'm gone. So your content has to be really impactful. And you know, no disrespect, but this ain't the sexiest industry in the world to create content for. Not that it can't be done, but I mean, you know, it's not like you guys are rock and roll bands or something where, you know, we got some things we can do. I see hand roll.
Yeah, I have a question. When I think about Lady Gaga, I think she's opinionated, and at least in Oklahoma, I think everywhere there's lots of opinions, and if I put up something on social media that took down the older doctors or whatnot, it would just be disastrous. So, like, if you're putting up stuff and you're trying to get attention, do you think it has to be an opinion, or are there other ways of...
People usually pay attention and share one of 3 things. You've either made me laugh, you've pissed me off, your opinion and I don't agree, so I'm going to take umbrage with your opinion, or you've wowed me. You've given me some factoid that I go, whoa, never in a million years would have thought of that. That's impressive. And I feel like I have to share it because I just blown away by this. Those are the 3 core buckets you tend to see. Personally, I don't think it's bad to have an opinion. If you read any of my stuff, you'll find I'm very opinionated. And I don't hold it back, and I can take very hard stance sometimes. I like it because it actually engages my readers. I love, if you look at my Twitter profile, it tells you I like a sip, drink, and a good debate. Let me know if you have on it. And people will routinely take me up on it. And we have, you know, a sip debate, and we go have a sip drink. And it's great, because we're all friends. I like to debate. I like the mental challenge. That's not a bad thing. Now, you got to be careful. You don't want to alienate. There's a difference between instigating and alienating. And it can be a very, very fine line, especially down in the south of Oklahoma. I would venture to say I could get away with a lot more in New York than I could in Louisiana, where I'm from, right? Because we still have the old Southern gentry mindset. However, having a point of view. The thing that you have to find, and what you find is that people love how-to stuff. When I do how-to things, it's crazy how much sharing I get and activity I get. Because people want to be taught how to do things, but they want to be taught how to do it fast. I don't want to take the time to learn how to do all this. So while you're not in the sexiest, maybe, of industries, you certainly have a lot of things you can do, right? There's a lot of things. I mean, if I'm a doctor, what's the one thing I don't want? I don't get sued. Which is kind of right in your wheelhouse, right? Well, there's a lot of things doctors can do to keep from getting sued. You know, there's bedside manner things. There's process and protocol things. There are things you can do to protect yourself. That some of them are really pretty simple. Some of them are just literally bedside manner, interpersonal skills that maybe just nobody ever taught in med school. It's little things like that you can do. But I'm going to show you how to actually take one piece of content, though, and show you how to break it into multiples. And it'll actually, I think, kind of get a little bit to what you're doing. So unique stands out. You're going to have a content strategy. That content strategy doesn't start at the blog post level. So many companies, when they get into this, their strategy starts at like the blog post level. That's like 2 levels in. You have to step back and think about, from a business perspective, what do you want to do? What do you want to create? What's your goal, right? Think about what your sales funnel would look like and how you're going to use content to bring people down the sales funnel, because that's ultimately what you're trying to do. You're probably going to be working with this set right here. You're going to have documents, white papers, briefings, things of that nature. You're probably going to have PowerPoints. Pictures possibly could be involved. Videos certainly should be. It's actually easier to optimize a video in Google than it is text because so few people are doing it. We're also an MTV world. We love to sit back and just have it pushed to us in video form versus actively reading. And audio is an often underutilized but very powerful medium as well. So you're probably looking at creating content in these big 5 buckets and then using it to then push out, inform, engage, and create leads. Basically what you're doing though in your content strategy is the same thing you've been doing your entire careers, and you're going to do it online and stuff offline. Traditionally what you would do is you would meet with a prospective client, you would tell them what they want, you would educate them, you would give them copies of reports, you would do all this stuff. Well, basically now you're going to do it all online, and the beauty of it is it can happen when you're not there. What this allows you to do is scale a sales force without hiring a salesman or woman. So, the way you go about this, as I said, each breadcrumb you're going to drop, it's really designed to move people down. So to give you an idea, so let's say I write a post on a social media site. I write a post on Facebook or Dr. Clown or any of those, and it talks about 7 ways to reduce medical liability risk or ward off getting sued or whatever. So a doctor sees that and goes, oh, that's interesting, and they click through. When they click through, now they're on my website. Okay? And they're reading this little post, except the post gives them the good information, but not all the information. It might be considered like an executive summary type of thing, right? So if I had done a bigger, deeper analysis, this might be the top. So to put it in context for like what we're talking about today, the first 5 or 6 slides of this presentation could easily be made into a post that you all might find interesting enough to click on and go to, right? Should medical malpractice insurance providers be in content marketing? It would be you would have a link to the post, and then the post would give you the 5 slides. But that's going to help you. You're like, wow, that's really good information. But then when you're on the post, you're going to see related content. You're going to see maybe a white paper that's going to give you all of the data. But you're going to have to give me your name, your email address. You're going to have to give a little something to get a little something, right? So now you've got a white paper, and I've pushed you further down the sales cycle. I'm bringing you down the rabbit hole. Because the person who stops at the post is interested in that answer, but they're probably not, it's not a real high priority for them to solve the question. The person who downloads the white paper is behaviorally indicating to me they are a higher qualified lead. They took an extra step, they traded some individual information in order to get information that I'm going to give them, this research study. And what they told me is that they want to download a white paper and read it. So they're willing to invest more money in answering the question, should I be in social media? What they're doing is more highly qualifying themselves to me. And in return, I'm giving them more information. So from the white paper, they read it, they get to the end. At the end, it says, wow, this is really great. We're doing more of this kind of research there. Because like any good research, it answers questions, but then it actually creates additional questions, right? And that's mostly good research will do, because you'll uncover some new insight in the research that you hadn't thought about when you designed it. So then what you do is you put a little something that says, hey, if you'd like more of this kind of research as we publish it, click here to subscribe to my newsletter. And now I have you in my loop. I've got you. Now I can have a digital conversation with you on here. Now your funnel may be different. This is an information or a lead capture funnel. If yours was a sales funnel, same kind of funnel, using related information, bring them further and further down the rabbit hole, but your funnel might be, call for pricing information, something like that. But in each and every case, I'm not trying to get you to jump to the bottom of the funnel. I'm just bringing you little by little by little. And I know that I'm going to lose some of you at each step of the funnel, and that's okay. Because I know you're self-educating. And you'll educate to the point where you're good, and then because even if I lose you up here, back up here at read a post on my website, Even if I lose you there, I've made an impression. So when you finally do get serious, there's a good chance you're going to come back and find that white paper. And then maybe you can subscribe. Or you might jump all the way to call or whatever. And believe me, this does happen. I've literally had people come back years after I've given presentations and call me and say, well, yeah, I saw you like 2 years ago at such and such conference. And I got your card and I've had it on file ever since. They absolutely do. They took a slightly different route to the end of the funnel, but they'll eventually get there. So this is kind of what you're looking to do. Now, the thing you have to understand, though, is that building the content is only half the battle. We are not in Iowa. This is not a cornfield, and we didn't just convert it into a baseball field. If you build it, they will not come. You have to tell them it's there. You have to, first and foremost, see here at Google. Has anybody ever heard of keyword searching? Everybody understand the idea of keyword searching? Okay. The idea is that you go into Google, they have an AdWords product, and it's designed to help you buy better pay-per-click ads, which we also use in the content world. And what you want to do is you want to type phrases or words that make sense in your industry that people would use to search. If you thought, okay, how would somebody find me in Google? What would they type? That's what you put in. What it does is it spits out a report that'll show you how competitive that word phraseology is and how many people are searching for it on a monthly basis in the U.S. And this is actually, so if you, obviously malpractice insurance is something that's pretty obvious. You know, it's great, 368,000 words, but at 75% competition ratio, it's a highly competitive word. You're probably going to have a hard time landing on the first 2 pages of Google for just a search of medical malpractice insurance or malpractice insurance. It'd be very, very difficult. And the thing is, if you're not in the first 2 pages of Google, you might as well just not exist. Because something like 95% of the people never go past the 2nd page. Okay? Especially if they find good stuff in the first 2 pages. So the idea is that with the keyword tool, it will also spit all this other stuff out and say, well, if you just would optimize for malpractice insurance costs, it's not nearly as competitive. There's not nearly as many searches, 14,800 per month, but it's 20% less competitive. And in your world, if I've added the word costs, I'm guessing that person's further down the rabbit hole. They're closer to actually buying. So the idea is you use the tool to figure out, okay, I need to create a lot of content, but if somebody types this, Google's going to push my content to the front. And by doing that, you show up and you get them into the top of the funnel faster. This is something that is a skill. There is an art to it as well, but it's also very easy. You can hire consultants. There are dime dozens to do this stuff for you. Every city, I promise you, if you Google SEO consultants in your city, there'll be 10 of them. I don't care how small a city you live in. In a big city, you more. Other things you have to do too, don't forget about, any of the social networks that you have a presence on, go ahead and push your content out. Even if people aren't interacting with it, it creates a link back. It gives Google a cue. And you will find that people will actually interact with it, even though they may not share it or comment on it, they will read it. Blog commenting, go find other blogs that are in your industry, comment on theirs, and leave a link back. Find a way to work a link to your blog post into their comment on their blog post or their website if they accept it. It's a really, really valuable tool that so many people just don't take advantage of. And then you can even see when it comes back, it will actually drive a lot of traffic. Email marketing, if you get an email from me in the signature line, it'll say, have you read my last blog post? And I'll have a link to my blog. Okay, how many emails go out in your organization every single day? If I really want to push a particular piece of content, I'll actually change the SIG file and say, have you read my last blog post about risk practice minimization? And I'll have a link to the post. And have everybody in your company do it, except it would be our blog instead of my blog. But people forget that those SIG files are like little direct marketing tools. So use them because they work. And then also make sure that you're using it to push to your target customers, the people you already have. Don't make them sign up for your newsletter. If it's something of value, then push it out to them. I do it all the time. If I see something that I think is valuable to a client, because some conversation someplace, they said something about, brand this or that, and I find something unique, I'll send it to them. It's a great way to keep in touch, and it drives people back and allows them to share it. All right, so creating content. The biggest hurdle to creating content is actually creating content. It is a really tough job. Because you really have to be, if you think about it, when you become a content creator, you become a publicist. You're really not any different than NBC Universal, the New York Times, Fortune Magazine. I mean, you're a publisher, right? You're publishing content in hopes of garnering an audience that you can monetize. You're a publisher. It's tough. Not everybody can do it. So don't just take whoever's on your staff that's free in marketing. Oh, Susie's got 30% capacity, and say, okay, Susie's now our new blogger. So many companies do that. Huge, huge, huge mistake. Susie may be a great writer, but if you put a blank piece of paper in front of Susie and say, go create a piece of content that's going to be relevant to doctors looking for medical malpractice insurance, Susie will sit there for an hour and a half, and there will still be nothing on the paper. You have to have the people that can do it. The other thing is just, it takes a lot of time. Most people will tell you you need a blog between 3 and 5 times a week if you really want to drive traffic and increase. The truth that other people will tell you, just blog when you have something to say. I'll tell you the truth probably in the middle. If you're a personal blogger, like me, where you're really selling your opinion, it's probably better to err on the side of only blogging when you have something worthy to say, because there's so many of us out there. For the corporations, though, I would tell you, you do need to have a little bit more consistency, because it will absolutely affect your traffic to your site. So you really should plan to be able to put out start with 2, and then you can always work your way up, 3 pieces of content a day. So how do you do that without hiring an entire staff of writers and video producers, etc.? You multi-purpose. Multi-purposing content. This is where I said most companies start their planning at the blog post level. The problem with the blog post level is it's 2 levels in. You need to start with a much bigger idea. What I tell people to do is this. Think about the biggest piece of content you could produce. White papers, seminars, stuff like that. Like, there's going to be some time and effort put into this. But when you're done, it's a very content-rich document. And that's why I like white papers, because there's so many words, pictures, charts, graphs. Research reports are outstanding. So you're going to put a whole lot of time and effort into coming up with a white paper. For example, maybe you're going to call that, 7 critical steps to minimize claims risk. Or maybe you're going to Lady Gaga it up and say how not to get sued by your patient. And you can A/B split test this, which works better. When you send it out like this, do you get more activity? Or when you send it out like this, do you get more activity? Either way, you're going to write some big white paper on how not to get sued. It's going to be 10, 15 pages long. It's going to talk about legal precedents. It's going to talk about protocols. It's going to talk about human interaction. All the various ways that doctors could go about not getting sued, right? It's going to be one hell of a document when you're done. It's going to be worth something. And then you're going to set it aside, okay? Because you're going to start multi-purposing it before you ever release it to the world. So if you're doing these content strategies, it's like you need to think in terms of an editorial calendar. What are going to be our major content pushes throughout the year? Because this one piece right here is going to end up being 12 pieces when I'm done with it. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you've got this white paper, you've got it in all the formats that people need. But before you release it, you're going to slim it down. You're going to turn it into a blog post on your own website. It's going to be like a summation version, an executive summary, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be a lot of good information, keyword rich, educational, helpful, the kind of thing that if I'm a doctor, I'd say, I should share this with my other doctor friends, because this is good stuff. You're also going to turn it into a conference presentation. Whether or not you're going to actually go to a conference and present it or not, I don't care about it. You're going to go ahead and turn it into a conference presentation anyways, because this conference presentation, this PowerPoint now becomes multiple other content points that you can use. If you can actually give it at a conference, that's even better. Because again, all you're going to do is you're going to take this blog post up here, and you're going to turn it into a conference piece down here. So if you think about a blog post as a subhead with some copy, every subhead becomes a slide, the copy becomes bullet points, about a thing, about a movie, you just wrote yourself a conference presentation. And it wasn't that hard, right? You're basically just repurposing some slimmed down content. Of course, you're trying to fill up all those social channels that you have, create backlinks, so you're going to tweet it, Facebook it, and dig it on the social stumble, this and everything else. You're going to, any place you can put a link back to this post, you're going to do it. All right? You're going to create as much reverse traffic back into the blog as possible. You're going to try to get it all keyword. You're going to Google it up so you're in the first couple of pages. Because what's going to happen is both your conference presentation and the blog post are going to say, look, for more information, go download our white paper. Right? Go download the white paper. If you thought this was good, this thing over here is looking fantastic. But you're going to have to trade me your name and your email address. That's all you need to ask them. The other thing people do is they put their content behind these big, heavy forms. You know what you get when you get a big, heavy form? You get what I put. My name is T. My last name is TTT. My email is t@ttt.com. My phone number is 555-555-5555. And guess what? It works. Because all the forms are checking for is there an @ symbol in the email address? Does it have a .com? Does the phone number have the right number of digits? Blah, 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 blah. You don't get real information because people are like, this is ridiculous. I'm not giving you all this information. I just want a stupid white paper. I don't even know if it's any good. So keep it simple. The other thing is, don't let them have an immediate download. I always think it's so stupid when people put a form in front of a download, and then you fill it out with your TTT, you hit submit, and boom, there it is. The only reason you're going to give it to me is to let me give you a piece of information and move me down the sales cycle. So make sure you tell them, hey, we need your name and a valid email address, and we will email you a link to download the white paper. Because I will tell you, it's the only way to guarantee you get a valid email address. Now, you will often get a Gmail or a Yahoo Mail or something like that. A lot of people have actually established emails that they use for nothing other than getting information off the internet, but that's okay. At least it's valid. And chances are, once they've used it other places, so then you can do other things in terms of trying to find out who that person is. You can go to places like Spokio, punch that email address in, all of a sudden you'll find out a whole lot of data about the individual because they've used it so many places. So you're going to, in both cases, at the end of your conference, you're going to say, wow, wasn't I great? Awesome. If you need more information, go to my website. We have a whole white paper that goes way in depth, blah, 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 blah. Everyone's going to go, now you've started the cycle. Okay? But we're not done. We've only created 2 pieces of content. So your blog post, you're going to go in, and you're either going to pull other pieces of information out of the white paper, or you're simply going to just slightly revise the blog post that you have. You're going to offer it up as a guest blog post at relevant trade organization websites and trade magazines. Publishers are laying off reporters and staff at record rates right now. They are dying for content. I've had blog posts get guest posted everywhere. I've had magazines take my blog post. I turn it into a magazine article. But basically, I've just put 3 here. You might turn it into 5, depending on what it is. If you work in 3 different states, find all the medical societies in all 3 states. Say, hey, I got this killer blog post. How not to get sued if you're a doctor. I'll give it to you for your monthly newsletter or your website or whatever. All they want is something quote-unquote unique. So twist it up a little bit. You know, put a stat in this one that's not in that one. Stuff like that. Change up the title a little bit. One can be 7 steps, 1 time not to get sued. That's a simple way to create a guest post. So now, again, with very little additional work, that's all you're doing is largely reformatting this. You've now created 3 more opportunities to have content. And, of course, you can do the same with the conference presentation. Just as I'm doing here today, this is being recorded. So when it's done, in about 5 minutes, I'll have the file finished. I'll have a recorded webinar sitting on my laptop that I can upload to YouTube where you can download it, share it, tell everybody how wonderful it was, that kind of stuff. I'm also going to have the opportunity that if I had really been thinking ahead, there would be somebody here with a camera videotaping this entire thing. Because that gives me yet another piece of content. So if you want to see the actual video of it, great. You go to YouTube or Vimeo or wherever you watch the video. If you just want the webinar version, which is slides and audio, you can go to another place. But again, it's pieces of content that don't take a whole lot more time. So the video goes up on the YouTube. The recorded webinar, it breaks down even further. Which is why I used to do it on my phone, and now I stop because it's faster. So this recorded webinar, the software I'm using, is going to allow me to extract the entire audio file separate from the slides. Then I can do a couple of things with that. A, I can put all that up on my thing. So now this one blog post now became a second blog post because I can put it on my own website, or I can put it in some sort of a content archive, etc. I'm going to take that audio, I'm going to reconnect it up on a site called SlideShare. Does anybody know SlideShare? It's the YouTube of PowerPoints. Well, in SlideShare, they have what's called a slide cast. And what you do is you upload your PowerPoint presentation, you upload an MP3 file of the audio, and it has a very simple tool. I mean, a secretary can do this. My kids, I've taught my kids how to do this. This is their, instead of mowing the lawn, they made slide casts for me and my friends. But then you take it and you sync the audio to the slides, and what it creates is basically a movie. But now it's on SlideShare, which is the YouTube of PowerPoint. And it's where a lot of people go, and it indexes very well, Google loves it, etc. And again, you really haven't done anything. All you do is strip the audio off, reconnect it, and if it's a 45-minute presentation, you could probably sync it in about 30 because you kind of remember what you said. A secretary or your kid will take an hour 15, because they'll have to actually listen and play with the markers. And then when it's all done, boom, you're finished. And that's another piece of information. And that's another piece that you can take and offer up to medical societies, to trade organizations, to whomever, again, that can all drive traffic back to you. The last thing you're going to do is you're going to take that audio and you're going to turn it into a podcast that you're going to put into iTunes. Podcasting is one of the most underutilized content streams ever. It was really hot about 5 years ago, kind of fell off, and now it's coming back. Because what people are figuring out is that it's still frowned upon to watch video at the office, right? But if you've got your headphones in and there's just an audio stream, they just assume you're listening to music. What you're doing is listening to a podcast a lot of times. It's like talk radio, for those of you that may not know what a podcast is. It's basically talk radio. But also when you think about a doctor's very busy. They don't spend their day in front of a computer screen. But if while they're out running errands or jogging or working out, they can certainly listen to a podcast on their iPod. Realistically, you don't have to have an iPod to do it. It's just an Android as a podcast. But you can actually set them up. You can get them into iTunes, and now you've got one more touch point where people can find you. Find your content, use your content. So basically, if you look at this, and of course, everything at every point gets shared. Your one white paper, because you thought through this strategically, you didn't start at the blog post, you started here at the big piece of content. You've got 12 pieces of content. You've probably got 20 different share points up there. Your content's on your site, it's on other people's site, it's shareable, it's usable, all from the time it takes you to make one white paper. That's how you do content marketing. Because in each and every one of these points, you've got links pointing back to your website. And what I told you earlier, Google loves seeing links coming back into your website. In fact, more of what happens off your website than what happens on your website determines where you fall in Google. If you can get a lot of inbound links, you can literally, I posted something and within 24 hours I'm on page 1 of Google. Because I got a bunch of people to link back to it. It's not that hard. This is how you multi-purpose content. This is how you get one person to be able to produce a lot of content. Because you can see, I can turn this into a handful of content pieces really, really simple by simply just deconstructing it. Then I can also reverse engineer. I can take this conference presentation, I can reverse engineer it to a blog post. I can't put it all the way to white paper. But I basically, with what I'm doing here today, can pretty much get most of this, if I want, if it was valuable. That's how you do it. Try to leave a good 10 or 15 minutes for questions. If you have any, I'd love to answer them. You can go to ConverseDigital.com. I have a blog where you go to Help My Brand, which is my personal blog. There's lots of other information if you're interested in content marketing or social media. There's also lots of other presentations and conference presentations that we give where you can ask some questions.